If your soil feels dead, no matter how much compost you throw at it, this is going to change how you garden forever. The problem isn't that your soil is hungry, it's that your soil is lonely. When earthworms disappear, soil stops functioning, roots suffocate, water runs off instead of soaking in, and plants limp along no matter how much fertilizer you apply. The fastest way to reverse that isn't buying worms or expensive amendments. It's burying one overlooked material the right way and letting biology do what it has always done best. Why earthworms are the real soil builders. Earthworms don't live in good soil, they create it. Every tunnel they carve opens pathways for air and water. Every bite they take transforms dead organic matter into nutrient-rich castings packed with beneficial microbes and natural plant growth compounds. Soil with a strong worm population holds moisture longer, drains better after heavy rain, and feeds plants steadily instead of flooding them with nutrients all at once. When worms are missing, soil collapses into a compacted mess, and plants become completely dependent on external inputs just to survive. Why most gardens accidentally drive worms away? Many gardeners unknowingly make their soil hostile to worms. Frequent tilling shreds worm tunnels and destroys cocoons before they can hatch. Bare soil overheats, dries out, and turns into a desert just inches below the surface. Synthetic fertilizers and salt-based inputs disrupt microbial life, which is the real food source worms depend on. Even compost, when left sitting dry on the surface, often fails to draw worms down where the real work happens. Worms aren't chasing nutrients, they are chasing moisture, shelter, and slow biological activity, the buried trigger that flips everything fast. The fastest way to multiply worms is to create an underground habitat they can't resist. That means burying soft, carbon-rich organic material that holds moisture and decomposes slowly. Soaked cardboard, shredded paper, decaying leaves, and partially broken down plant matter all work, but plain cardboard stands out. It absorbs water like a sponge, breaks down gradually, and creates a dark, protected zone that mimics fallen tree bark on a forest floor. When placed correctly underground, it becomes a biological magnet. How deep to bury it for maximum results? Depth determines success. Too deep and oxygen drops, slowing microbial activity. Too shallow and moisture escapes before worms can settle in. The sweet spot is 4 to 6 inches below the soil surface. Dig a shallow trench or pocket, lay the soaked material flat rather than crumpled, then cover it with the soil you removed. Gently water the area after burial. Within days, microbes move in. Worms follow shortly after, drawn by the microbial bloom rather than the cardboard itself. Why soaking the material changes everything. Dry organic matter repels worms, moist material invites them in. Before burying cardboard or paper, soak it completely. Plain water works, but results improve dramatically when you add biology. Mix 1 cup of finished compost or worm castings into 1 gallon of water. Stir well and let it sit for 1 hour. Use this solution to soak the cardboard thoroughly before burying it. This inoculates the material with beneficial microbes and releases chemical signals worms can detect from surprising distances. So, what actually happens underground after burial? Well, within just a few hours, bacteria and fungi start to colonize the buried material. Pretty fascinating, right? Soon after, worms arrive, but interestingly, they feed on the microbes rather than the cardboard itself. As conditions stabilize, worms begin laying cocoons. Each cocoon can actually hatch multiple worms, provided that moisture and food remain consistent. Within about 2 to 4 weeks, you'll notice the soil becoming darker, with a looser texture and visible worm channels spreading outward. Plant roots tend to follow these tunnels, reaching deeper water and nutrients without much resistance. Now, you might wonder why this process multiplies worms instead of just attracting them. Well, surface feeding brings worms up temporarily, but burial creates a true home. When food, moisture, and shelter exist below ground, worms stick around and reproduce. Because the material breaks down slowly, it feeds worms for months, not just days. As each buried zone finishes decomposing, worms naturally migrate outward, spreading fertility through the entire bed. And that really is how just a few worms turn into a permanent population. So, how often should you repeat this process? One burial certainly helps, but repetition is what truly transforms soil. In garden beds, aim to bury organic material every 4 to 6 weeks in a new spot. Over a single growing season, the entire bed becomes threaded with worm tunnels. In orchards and perennial areas, once per season around the drip line is enough. The key is to disturb less, feed consistently, and let biology scale itself. Now, why does mulch lock in success? Well, burial works best when paired with surface protection. A 2 to 4 inch layer of leaves, straw, or wood chips keeps soil cool and moist. Worms migrate upward at night to feed and retreat safely during the day. Bare soil, on the other hand, overheats and dries out, forcing worms deeper or even driving them away entirely. Mulch turns your buried food zones into permanent worm highways. There are a few mistakes that can stop worm multiplication cold. Burying material too deep, for instance, suffocates microbes. Using oily or salty kitchen waste actually repels worms. Letting soil dry out halts reproduction entirely. Tilling destroys tunnels and cocoons in just seconds. This method really works best with minimal disturbance and consistent moisture. So, why does this beat compost alone? Compost improves soil chemistry, sure, but worms rebuild soil structure and biology. By feeding worms directly underground, you skip the waiting period compost requires. Worms place nutrients exactly where roots need them, while activating the entire soil food web. This is living soil built from the inside out. It's nature's blueprint for living soil. Earthworms don't need to be bought, they just need to be invited. Bury the right material at the right depth with moisture and biology, and worms respond fast. They tunnel, multiply, and rebuild soil in ways no product ever can. If this guide helped you unlock living soil the natural way, make sure to subscribe to Farm Basic for more practical, proven gardening strategies. Share this with a fellow gardener struggling with poor soil and start feeding the soil life that feeds everything else.